She was quietly crying behind the breakroom door, hidden, unheard, or so she thought. What Ariel Knox didn't realize was that someone was listening, and that someone wasn't just another worker. He was Julian Merritt, the undercover CEO of the entire restaurant chain. Julian pulled into the restaurant parking lot at 6:45 p.m. on a Friday evening, the busiest night of the week. He sat quietly in his black Ford Explorer, engine off, staring at the glow of the neon sign above the entrance. Merritt's table, a name he had scribbled on a napkin 10 years ago, now shining above the third location in Jackson, Mississippi. He didn't look like a CEO, no tailored suit, no designer tie, just a gray hoodie, fitted jeans, and clean sneakers. The only giveaway, if anyone noticed, was the sleek watch on his wrist. But no one looked closely, and that was exactly how he liked it. Inside, the restaurant buzzed with life. The air was thick with the smell of hot grease and Cajun spice. Families shared stories over plates of fried catfish. Couples leaned close over mac and cheese. Children giggled as they dipped hush puppies in sauce. It all looked like any other Friday night. Julian walked in without a reservation and without recognition. The teenage hostess at the stand barely glanced up. "Just one?" she asked, eyes half-lidded. He nodded. "That's fine. Bar's full. Booth?" "Booth works." She led him past rows of diners, weaving through conversations and clinking silverware, before dropping him at a corner booth with a view of the swinging kitchen doors. He sat down, appearing casual, but his eyes didn't miss a thing. He watched the manager, chest puffed like a rooster, barking at the bartender near the bar. A waitress, barely in her 20s, rushed by in worn-out shoes, balancing two heavy trays. Another server stumbled over a chair, earning a glare from the manager, but no assistance. Julian noticed the small things, the way smiles only appeared when customers were watching, how the staff whispered more than they spoke, how one busboy kept glancing nervously toward the back. He pulled out a small, worn notepad, not to write, just to feel it in his hand. Years ago, he'd used it to jot down recipes, sauce tweaks, and spice notes. Now it was more a memory than a tool. His server approached. "Hey man, thanks for your patience. Water, bread, menu. You good?" Julian gave a warm nod. "All good. Appreciate you." The server, Deshawn, grinned. "Friday crowds can be brutal, but you came at a good time. Want to start with anything?" Julian ordered the shrimp and grits with a side of greens, handed back the menu, and watched Deshawn disappear behind the kitchen doors. Something in the restaurant's rhythm felt off. Beneath the surface clatter of dishes and laughter, there was tension. Something quiet, something heavy. He noticed a young woman near the dish station, refilling water pitchers. Braided hair, tired shoulders. She kept glancing over her shoulder. Every time the manager walked past, her spine straightened. When he was gone, she deflated. Julian knew something wasn't right. The food arrived hot. Deshawn checked in again. "Anything else I can get you?" Julian smiled. "Nope, you're doing great." But even as he ate, Julian couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was broken. The flavor was familiar, the recipe unchanged, but the experience? Off as subtly but unmistakably. Just as he reached for his water, a sound caught his attention. It didn't belong to the rhythm of a busy Friday night. It was faint, distant, crying. He froze. The sound was coming from the back hallway, near the employee lockers. He rose silently and walked toward it, each step muffled against the worn tile floor. He wasn't supposed to be back there. But this wasn't about rules anymore. It was about truth. The hallway smelled of fryer oil and lemon cleaner. He moved slowly, pausing as the voice behind the breakroom door came into focus. "I can't do it anymore, Tash. I'm trying, but he treats me like trash, like I should be grateful just to be here." Julian didn't peer inside. He stood still, listening, not to intrude, but to understand. Inside, the waitress from earlier sat hunched by the lockers, sleeves rolled, eyes red from holding back tears. Ariel Knox, her name tag read. Beside her, a kitchen worker, Tasha, rested a comforting arm on her shoulder. "I asked for my overtime from last week," Ariel whispered. "He said I had an attitude. I've been working doubles 3 days a week, and I'm still short on pay." She rubbed her sleeve against her face. "And now he's talking about writing me up for speaking out of turn, just because I stood up after he humiliated Danny in front of a whole table." Tasha shook her head. He ain't nothing but a bully in khakis. You didn't do anything wrong. Danny dropped a tray. Happens to everybody. Ariel's voice dropped lower. He made him cry. Grown man, crying in the walk-in. And now everyone's too scared to say a word. Brent's watching us like hawks. That name, Brent, landed like stone in Julian's chest. He took a step back, silently, carefully. They couldn't know he'd heard. Not yet. Not until he could do something about it. Back at his booth, Julian sat in silence, staring at the plate he'd barely touched. His thoughts raced. Deshawn walked past again. Everything all right? Julian looked up. You ever had issues with the manager here? Deshawn paused. What do you mean? Julian stayed casual. Just asking. Deshawn lowered his voice. You didn't hear this from me, but Brent's not easy to work for, especially if you're new or if you speak up. You ever go to HR? Julian asked. HR's not here on Fridays, Deshawn replied with a tight smile. That said enough. Julian stood, left cash on the table, and walked again toward the back. Not to leave, but to confront. Not as a customer, as the man who built this place. He stopped at the small office door near the bathrooms. A paper sign taped to it read, Manager only. He knocked. Once, then again. The door creaked open. Brent Allister, early 40s. Dress shirt, Bluetooth in one ear, name tag half faded. His smile was corporate, but hollow. Sir, this area's for staff only. Dining room's that way. Julian didn't flinch. His voice was calm. Let's have a word. In the office. Brent raised a brow. Excuse me? Julian met his eyes steady. You heard me, I said, in the office. Brent gave him a once-over, confused, trying to place the face. Still didn't recognize him. I don't have time for... Julian calmly reached into his hoodie pocket, pulled out his wallet and flipped it open to reveal a sleek company ID. His full name, the logo, and title printed clearly beneath it. Julian Merritt, founder and CEO. Brent's mouth opened, but no sound came. Julian tilted his head toward the office door, wordlessly. Brent still hadn't realized the real conversation hadn't even begun. Inside, the office was as uninspiring as Julian remembered from his early days. Receipts spilling out of trays, a corkboard cluttered with outdated schedules, and mismatched chairs that hadn't seen an upgrade in years. Julian took the seat facing the door. Brent remained standing, arms crossed, shifting his weight like a guilty student called to the principal's desk. I didn't know you were coming, Brent offered, his voice thinner than before, eyes flicking toward the hallway, maybe hoping for an interruption. That was the point, Julian replied. Brent forced a nervous chuckle. Look, if something's wrong, I'd appreciate some context. We've been running things smooth here. Solid Yelp reviews. Hit our targets last week. Julian didn't flinch. I just heard one of our team crying in the break room because she's scared to come to work. Brent blinked. His face didn't show concern, just calculation. Staff complain, Julian. It happens. I run a tight ship. Can't have people taking advantage. Who's taking advantage? Julian asked, his voice cool. Ariel? Brent hesitated. She's emotional, young, good worker, just rattles easy. I've been helping her toughen up. By threatening her job? Embarrassing her coworkers in public? Julian leaned back. Let's not waste time. I already know what's happening. I've been here. I've seen it. Brent opened his mouth to protest, but Julian raised a hand. Don't lie. Silence stretched out like tension on a wire. I didn't mean to make anyone uncomfortable, Brent muttered. I just run a disciplined environment. We're in the South. People show up with bad habits sometimes. Julian's posture stiffened. I know exactly where I am, Brent. I built this company here on purpose. You think I don't understand the people showing up here every shift, just trying to make a living? Brent swallowed hard. Julian stood, not to intimidate, just to end it. You're going home early tonight. Brent blinked. What? Clock out. Go home. I'll handle the rest. Brent didn't argue. He just nodded, slow and dazed, then slipped out the door. He still didn't get it. He thought this was just a slap on the wrist. Julian walked back into the hallway. The restaurant hummed with its usual rhythm, the sizzle of fryers, the clatter of plates, but something felt different now, sharper, exposed. He passed the dish pit and paused. A young man, thin, maybe 19, was wiping trays, face flushed from heat and effort. "You, Danny?" The boy looked up, startled. "Yeah," Julian extended a hand. "I'm Julian." Danny hesitated, then quickly wiped his hands on his apron and shook it. "Nice to meet you, sir." Julian nodded toward the kitchen. "Brent give you a hard time the other night?" Danny lowered his gaze. "I dropped a tray. My hands were wet. He yelled at me in front of a full table. Told me I embarrassed the brand. Said I should go work at a gas station." Julian clenched his jaw. He didn't speak immediately. "You like working here?" Danny gave a half shrug. "I like the people. Ariel looks out for me. So does Tash. But yeah, it's hard." Julian patted his shoulder. "Thank you for being honest." He moved on, cutting through the heat of the kitchen. One of the line cooks, a man in his 50s, was limping as he juggled 3 orders at once. No one helped. No one asked. Julian stopped him. "What happened to your leg?" The man looked surprised. "Old injury. Gets worse on long shifts. But I'm good." "You ask for accommodations?" "A couple times. Brent told me, if you can't handle the line, there's the door." Julian closed his eyes for a second. Enough. He stepped into the hallway, pulled out his phone, and texted, "To Lynn Carter. Subject, Jackson location. Urgent emergency meeting Monday morning. Full audit. I'll explain in person." Then he turned toward the break room. This time he didn't pause at the door. He knocked gently, then opened it. Ariel and Tasha looked up, startled. Julian gave a calm, steady smile. "Can we talk?" They froze. The air in the room tightened. Ariel's eyes were still red, her expression somewhere between fear and disbelief. Tasha's arms crossed, instinctively protective. "I'm not here to judge," Julian said gently. "I just want the truth." They didn't speak. "I'm Julian Merritt," he continued. "I own this place. I came unannounced, watched, listened, and now I want to hear from you. No filters." Ariel blinked. "You're him." Julian nodded. "And I'd be grateful if you'd be honest. No sugarcoating." Tasha glanced at Ariel, then back at Julian. "He's serious." Ariel shifted on the bench. "I don't want to get anyone fired. I just didn't know who else to tell." Julian sat across from them, elbows on his knees. "Don't worry about firings. Just speak freely." Ariel drew a breath. "Brent treats us like we're disposable. The people he likes get good shifts, time off. The rest of us, if we're late by 2 minutes, it's a write-up. If we ask questions, we've got an attitude." Tasha added, "And if we talk too much, he cuts hours. Some of the guys in the kitchen are down to 2 shifts a week. When we raise concerns, it's always the same. You don't like it? Leave." Julian listened, jaw tight, hands still. "And the customers," Ariel went on, "we're told to smile, serve, and shut up. Even when they treat us like trash, Brent always takes their side. Always." Tasha leaned forward. "Ariel works harder than anyone. Doubles, extra shifts, never slacks. Ask anyone. And Brent rides her like she's the problem." Julian nodded slowly. "How long has this been going on?" "Since 2 months after we opened," Ariel said. "We kept hoping it would get better. We needed the job." Julian leaned back and let out a long breath, something deep and heavy. The restaurant might have been serving good food, but its foundation had started to rot, and he just walked straight into the cracks. And now he had work to do. "You shouldn't have to endure disrespect just to earn a paycheck." Ariel looked up, her voice quieter this time. "Then why does it happen so often?" Julian didn't respond right away. The question hit harder than she likely intended. He had hired Brent, vetted his resume, approved his interviews, called the references, and then, for 8 whole months, he never checked in. Maybe Brent wasn't the only failure here. Maybe the real one was him. He stood up slowly. "I'm making changes, effective immediately." Ariel's eyes narrowed. "What kind of changes?" Julian offered a small, tired smile. "The kind that start with listening and end with accountability." Then he turned and left the break room, back through the kitchen. The air was heavy with the scent of oil and heat, and now something else. Tension. Staff glanced his way, some curious, others cautious. The CEO was here, and he wasn't smiling. At the front of the house, customers laughed and clinked glasses, blissfully unaware that behind the kitchen doors, a quiet shift had begun. Julian tapped Deshawn on the shoulder. "Can you do me a favor?" "Sure." "Quietly let everyone clocked in tonight know there's a team meeting at closing. Paid time. I'll lead it." Deshawn raised an eyebrow. "Got it." Julian stood by the entrance, arms folded, watching. Brent appeared minutes later, his face tight, eyes forward. He walked out without a word. Some staff noticed, others pretended not to. Julian didn't stop him. Not in front of everyone. Let him walk. Let him wonder. The real work came after the exit. But what no one expected was that Brent's replacement wasn't a stranger. The restaurant closed just after 11. The last table left with their takeout boxes. The clatter of cleanup began, scraping pans, folding aprons, dragging heavy trash bags to the back door. Julian waited by the host stand as the staff gathered. No one knew what to expect. Ariel stayed near the back, arms folded tightly. Danny leaned on a mop handle, still wearing his dish gloves. Tasha stood off to the side, wary. Julian raised a hand. "Thanks for staying. I know you're tired. I won't keep you long, but I want to make something clear." His voice was steady, soft enough that everyone had to lean in to hear. "This place carries my name, my family's name. I opened Merritt's table with a single location and a borrowed stove. I built it on a simple promise: good food, good people, and a fair place to work." He looked around the circle. "But somewhere between the profits and the paperwork, I forgot to keep my eyes on the floor. That's on me." Silence. A few heads nodded. "I saw enough tonight to know things aren't being run the way I intended. People talked down to, punished for speaking up, pressured into silence. That ends now." A ripple moved through the room. "I'm not here to scare anyone. I'm here to fix what's broken, one person at a time. Starting tonight." He gestured toward the back. "I'll be here for the next few hours. I want to speak to each of you, one-on-one. Just 5 minutes. Tell me your truth. No consequences." Ariel raised her eyebrows. "Seriously?" Julian nodded. "Off the record, not off the radar." Tasha smirked at that, arms still crossed. "If you've ever worked a job where your voice didn't matter," he said, "this isn't that place anymore." Deshawn was first. He sat across from Julian in the cramped office, hat in hand, fingers fidgeting. "I like working here, man," he said. "Worked worse jobs, but Brent made it feel like speaking up would get you cut. I've seen 3 people disappear from the schedule just for asking questions." Julian scribbled notes in a small black notebook. "Anyone else you think I should talk to? Maybe Kesha. She sees everything, just doesn't talk much." Then came Kesha, then Tasha, then Danny, each with their own story, some angry, some scared, but all with one thing in common: a need to be heard. Kesha talked about schedule changes so last minute she couldn't line up childcare or a second job. Tasha described Brent's personal comments about her weight, her clothes, her hair. Said she'd started eating lunch in her car just to avoid him. Danny admitted he'd nearly quit 3 times that month. Said he stayed because of Ariel. Each story chipped away at Julian's silence. He didn't interrupt, didn't argue, just listened. When Ariel finally entered, she didn't sit right away. She looked at him, unreadable, like she wasn't sure whether to thank him or curse him. "You really didn't know?" she asked. Julian shook his head. "I didn't." "Then why are you taking it personally?" He paused. "Because I started this to give people like you something better, and I hate that I became just another boss who stopped paying attention." She sat, arms still crossed. "So what now?" "Now," Julian said, leaning forward, "I rebuild the trust. One shift at a time." Ariel studied him, then gave a small nod. Not agreement, not forgiveness, just willingness. Willingness to wait and see. Monday morning came without fanfare. The sun burned through the haze above Jackson, and the restaurant doors stayed shut until noon. A handwritten sign was taped to the glass. "Closed for staff development. Thank you for your patience." Inside, Julian arrived early. No hoodie. A button-up with the sleeves rolled, a binder in one hand, his black notebook in the other. He wasn't here to perform. He was here to fix what he'd let break. By 8:15, the entire team had shown up. some in uniforms, others in jeans and hoodies. No one knew what staff development meant. They gathered in the dining room, standing in loose clusters, some hopeful, some skeptical. Julian stepped forward. I want to thank everyone who spoke to me Friday. What you said matters. It won't be ignored. He let that settle. Here's where we start. Brent is no longer with the company. Gasps. A few widened eyes. Ariel looked down, hiding a small smile. Danny nudged Tasha, eyebrows raised. Julian continued. Today we're implementing a new code of conduct, and we're forming a peer committee, one that includes servers, cooks, dish crew, who will help shape how this place is run. A young prep cook raised a hand. Like a workers' board? Exactly, Julian nodded. Accountability in both directions. If someone abuses their power, they're out. If someone needs coaching, they'll get support, not punishment. He stepped closer. I've also brought in a third-party auditor. If you've worked overtime and didn't get paid, that ends now. We'll fix it. With back pay, no red tape. You could feel the shift. Shoulders relaxed, mouths opened, not in disbelief but cautious hope. And finally, Julian said, I'll be visiting this location regularly. Not as your boss, just a guy who wants to see you succeed. I won't always give notice. I'll eat here. I'll talk to you. I'll ask questions. A few people laughed quietly. Others just stared. You don't owe me smiles, Julian added. You owe yourselves a safe place to work, and I owe you my word that from this moment forward, this is that place. Silence lingered again, but it felt different now, heavier in meaning, lighter in fear, and Ariel, arms still fold. You don't owe me loyalty, Julian said softly, looking across the quiet room. You owe me honesty. A lanky bartender with tattooed sleeves let out a dry chuckle. So, what? You're gonna spy on us now? Julian smiled, not with sarcasm, but with sincerity. I'm just going to keep showing up. And if I do it right, eventually you won't flinch when I walk in. A ripple of laughter broke through the tension like sun between clouds. For the first time in a long while, it didn't feel like a performance. It felt real. This isn't about appearances, Julian added. It's about progress. You all deserve better, and I won't forget that again. After the meeting, the air lingered with something new. Possibility. Some staff hung back to talk. A few offered quiet thanks. Others asked about the new peer committee. Julian handed over a clipboard. No pressure, he said. Only intention. He stayed for another hour, not to supervise but to learn. This time his questions weren't surface level. He wanted to know what worked, what broke, what people actually needed to do their jobs right. Small signs of change had already taken root. The line cook with the limp, Monty, Julian now knew, had a padded mat under his station. It had arrived that morning. A gesture, yes, but one that said, I saw you, I heard you. Ariel passed him near the front, arms full of restocked menus. Feels different in here today. Julian looked up. Good different or weird different? She gave a half smile. Both, he chuckled. I'll take both. Then came something Julian hadn't expected. Danny approached, still in his dish gloves, holding a folded piece of paper like it was made of glass. It's from my mom, he said, almost whispering. She told me to give it to the guy who believed me. Julian opened the note. The handwriting was delicate, deliberate. Thank you for seeing my son when someone else tried to make him invisible. Not everyone would. Julian folded it and slid it gently into his pocket. No response was needed. Some moments weren't meant to be answered. They were meant to be carried. But he wasn't done yet. 3 weeks later, Julian returned to the Jackson location. No entourage, no clipboard, just a hoodie like the first night. This time, it was intentional. He walked in just after the morning shift had begun. The scent of biscuits and fresh coffee hung in the air. It felt calm, not quiet in the way that's tense, but in the way that feels right. Ariel was setting up syrup bottles at table 4. She caught sight of him, gave a small nod. Not one of duty, one of recognition. Julian slid into the corner booth, the same one as before. Moments later, Deshawn appeared with a mug of black coffee. We've got pecan waffles fresh. Want a plate? Julian grinned. You remembered? First order you made here, Deshawn said with a shrug. I don't forget the good ones. Julian looked around. Kesha was training a new hostess, gently showing her how to fold menus just right. Danny was back at the dish pit, this time with headphones on and a grin playing at the edges of his mouth. Monty had a stool at his station now, for the slower moments. There was no perfection here, but there was rhythm, humanity, heart. Ariel came over during a lull. Still doing surprise visits? Julian smirked. I like to keep folks guessing. She hesitated. I talked to the new manager. He's decent. Said he wants to do things your way. Asked me to help with scheduling. Julian raised an eyebrow. You said yes. Eventually, she shrugged. Figured, if someone's going to build the table, they ought to know how to set it right. Julian nodded slowly. Good. You've got leadership in you. Don't waste it waiting for permission. She paused, eyes narrowing thoughtfully. That's something your dad told you? Julian stared out the window for a moment. Nah, it's something I wish someone told me when I was your age. She gave a small smile. Nothing more. Then she turned and walked back toward the kitchen. Julian watched her go, then reached into his pocket, pulled out the folded note from Danny's mom. He kept it near his wallet now. Read it sometimes when the world got too loud. The guy who believed me. That line stuck. Because the truth was, Julian hadn't always believed people. Not when he was opening locations, chasing metrics, hiring people like Brent with polished resumes and rehearsed charm. Somewhere along the way, he'd started trusting numbers more than names, processes over people. But voices were what had built this brand, and ignoring them nearly cracked its foundation. He glanced around the restaurant again. No one rushed to impress him. No one tried to read his expression. And to Julian, that was the loudest sign of all, that something had changed. Before leaving, he asked Deshawn for a Sharpie, walked quietly to the corkboard by the break room, the one usually littered with shift swaps and weekend notes. He took a fresh sheet of white paper and wrote in bold black ink, "The day we stop listening is the day we stop leading. Keep your eyes open, and your ears even more. Julian Merritt." He pinned it in the center, not flashy, not framed, just a reminder. Then he turned, gave the team a small wave, and walked out. No grand exit, no spotlight, just a quiet departure, like any customer with a full stomach and a full heart. Outside, he paused on the curb, watching the cars pass along McQuilly Drive. People rushing to jobs, schools, errands. The world kept spinning. But inside that restaurant, something had shifted. It had never just been about food. It was about dignity, about listening, about giving people ownership, not just of their roles, but of the culture they create. Julian climbed into his car, pulled out his phone, and opened a blank note. He typed 4 words: show up, watch, listen, correct. He saved it. No title, just a guide, a promise, a reminder. Because in the end, the greatest change wasn't firing Brent. It wasn't rewriting the rules or posting new policies. It was remembering that leadership doesn't live behind office doors. It lives in the silence between words, in the truth people are scared to say. It lives in showing up. If this story touched something in you, if it reminded you that how we treat people matters, especially when no one's watching, then share it. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that speak to what we all deserve: respect, fairness, and the courage to do better.